Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will call the Common Council to order. I will ask our clerk to call the roll to determine a quorum.
Alderperson Lysick.
Here.
May.
Here.
Probst. Here. Reinke. Here. Rote.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Barzak.
Here.
Chaplesky.
Here.
9 present, none excused.
We have a quorum. I would ask, as a lot of you know, we had a tragedy at our police department, or not at our, regarding our police department. One of our detectives, Stacy Napoli, passed away shortly after giving birth to twins. And I would ask that we have a moment of silence after the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 items up for public hearing this evening. I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 1.
A hearing on the improvement of South 101st Street from West National Avenue to West Cleveland Avenue, South 101st Street from West Greenfield Avenue to 158 feet south of West Maple Street, and portions of intersecting streets by major asphalt resurfacing with miscellaneous walk repair, miscellaneous driveway repair, sanitary sewer relay, water main relay, building services, and utility adjustments.
Mr. Daniels?
Thank you, Mayor Devine. Okay, this is the public hearing for 101st Street and the other 101st Street. Tonight's procedures are, we'll go through the project scope and cost. We'll go through the assessment rates, methods of payment, and we'll have comments and questions from the Common Council and from citizens affected. Then the hearing will be closed and the project will be referred to the Board of Public Works later tonight, and we would expect a final decision by the council later tonight. Here's the first 101st Street from National to Cleveland, right by the freeway. And here is the other 101st Street from Greenfield to essentially the railroad tracks south of Maple, also right by the freeway. It's on, right? Okay. I'll try and talk loud. So here's the first 101st Street from National to Cleveland. The concrete was installed in 1965, so that means it's 49 years old. Parts of it have serious pavement deterioration that's beyond even maintaining. Then the other 101st Street from Greenfield Avenue to south of Maple Street was also paved in about 1963, so that's 51 years old. We also have lots and lots of potholes that city crews have to fill every year. The project will also include the removal and replacement of deteriorated curb and gutter with concrete base patching. The old concrete would be cracked and seeded so that it won't rock anymore. The idea is to crack the larger panels into smaller ones to reduce the reflective cracking that is caused by the rocking. We would put a new 4-inch asphalt surface over the top of the concrete, and then some underground utilities would be repaired and upgraded. The project also includes several sustainability benefits. The gravel used would be 100% recycled crushed concrete from old pavements instead of mining new gravel from quarries. Recycled fly ash should be used from coal plants to reduce the new cement by 30%. And new asphalt will be made from 20 to 35% old recycled asphalt pavements to reduce mining and drilling for other new materials. Here's what the typical finished product would look like with a new asphalt surface, curb and gutter, sidewalk repairs where needed. Here's the cost of both projects together. The pavement would be $655,000, street lighting $16,000, sanitary sewer $40,000, storm sewer $52,000, water main $120,000, So the total cost of both projects would be $884,000. Now, the city will collect $176,000 in special assessments, which is 27% of this top number for the two projects. And I just wanted to point out that all the manufacturing and commercial properties on 101st Street from Greenfield to Maple would be, combined would pay $113,000. So they would be paying 74% of the assessments for the 101st Street between Greenfield and Maple. Here's a sample special assessment for a lot that's 60 feet wide. The assessment rate is $41.82 per foot. The homeowner's cost is $2,509. If there was any driveway work to be done, it'd be $6.26, but I don't believe we were doing any driveways in this case. The bills would not be mailed out until March of 2015. At that point, you would have various payment options, which would include a lump sum, 5-year installment plan, or a 10-year installment plan. Now, over a 10-year period, assuming 4% interest, these special assessments would range from $351 in the first year, which is 2015, to $261 for the whole year in the year 2024. Here's an explanation of why we have special assessed over the past 100 years. Historically, residents have paid the full cost of the street in front of their house because they are enjoying the unique benefit of this improvement to their property. Now, in this project, the city is collecting $176,000, which is only 27% of the actual paving cost. The assessment rate is $41.82 for all residential properties, no matter where you live in the city, or how wide your street is, or how high the traffic volumes are, or how high the actual bid prices are. Everyone in the city pays $41.82, so everyone is treated perfectly equally. Special assessments are the only way to ensure that tax-exempt schools, churches, charities, county parks, and railroads pay their fair share. No one is exempt from special assessments, even though some properties do not pay property taxes at all. Businesses, corporations, and manufacturers pay a higher assessment rate to ensure they contribute their fair share, and their assessment rate is actually $52 to $62 per foot. This is a map of everyone who has paid a special assessment in the past 10 years across the city. And you can see that everyone is paying their fair share. Most have already paid for the street or alley in front of their property over just the past 10 years. And of course, if you go back over the past 100 years, it would be 100%. But in the past 10 years, you can see almost everyone has had to pay for their street or alley. The reason we charge a 4% interest if you choose the 10-year plan is that the city borrows the funds for this project, and the city pays interest to these municipal bondholders over the next 10 years, so the city passes along these interest charges to the residents. The city does not make a profit off the interest charged. So at this time, I'll entertain any questions that the council or citizens would have.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Are there any questions from the Common Council on this item?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman May?
Pete, looking at the map here and knowing the area, 100th Street and 101st Street, these properties are kind of unique in our district that they touch two public streets. Oftentimes you might have a public street and a public alley, but this is two public streets. What determines which side is their 100% side and what happens to the other side? How do we assess people for that?
Well, it's fairly common for people to have 2 or even 3 sides abutting streets, like if they're on a corner. There's hundreds and hundreds of homes that are on a corner. So the shorter side, or in this case, the front side, is the 100% side. And on a corner lot, the longer side, you would get 60% off. And in this case, if it's the back of your lot, we give you 60% off. So with the 60% off, you're actually paying less than if you had had an alley in the back. And the theory is that you have access to both streets, or in the case of an alley, you have 2 streets and an alley. You have options. You can get your sewer from either street. You can put your garage on either street. It just gives someone options. That street is there to serve that property, And the more options you have, the more it's worth. So that's why we assess for all sides that touch the property.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments from the Common Council on this item? Seeing none, are there any questions or comments from people in the audience on this item? If there are, I would ask that you approach the podium with the microphone here, and please sign in either before or after, and also state your name and address for our record.
Patrick Bertrand. I live at 1603 South 100th Street. So I think if you're familiar with this block, I'm sure that based on the proposal you are. I've lived in this house for, I want to say, around 6 years or so, and this neighborhood is actually very unique in terms of the mixed use. Obviously what you have is a row of houses that are all residential. For the most part, those houses, the residential houses, access 100th Street. That would be the 100% primary use of that road. Now, there's a few houses that are up on the northern side of 101st Street that may have some access to the 101st Street, but after those few houses, basically what you're looking at is a service road that provides access for the various businesses along 101st Street. Now, if you go up and down 101st Street, what you'll notice, first of all, is that these are fairly large businesses with 50 to 100 employees, and many of these businesses have access for loading docks, where you have 18-wheel, fully loaded semi-trucks going back and forth. And even though we're looking at a road that's around 50-plus years old, there's been a lot of construction that's been going on. Primarily, Summit Credit Union, once that was raised and leveled, there was a lot of access to the roads. So really, as a resident, I mean, I appreciate the fact that you want to treat everybody equally and fairly, but I think that equality comes down to treating equals equal. So it's not the same as a corner lot because we don't have access to that road. I can speak personally as a resident that I almost never use 101st Street just because of all the commercial traffic that goes through there. Everybody's basically accessing 101st Street only to get to Orchard to get down to 101st Street. So to be levied with a 700 or so, or I'm sure that based on your access to the road and the assessment, it almost looks like we're subsidizing the businesses. Now, I think you were talking about how your primary main street is taxed at 100%. It really seems that fairness would dictate that the businesses, since they're the ones really using that road and using it in a commercial way, that they would be the ones to bear the brunt of this, and that we really don't have the access to it. And I would object that this is treating equals equal, or that we're really getting that much of a benefit from this road.
It's not just about the car access, it's about you have access to the sewer, the water main, and actually your utilities are all on 101st Street, the electricity, telephone, and police patrol, if you want to throw that in too. I mean, you have benefits from 101st Street. And even if none of you paid, it wouldn't change the assessment rate for the businesses because they're locked in at $62 a foot no matter where they are. So you're not subsidizing them. You're paying the same as everyone else in the city, whether they live on a cul-de-sac like the other part of 101st Street. There are no businesses. They're paying the same rate. So it's not an us or them. It's you're paying, you're equal to anyone else, even if they live on a cul-de-sac or if they live on a busy street or whatever. The businesses are paying the same rate whether they're there or on a small street like Hicks where it's mostly residential.
So
it's not an us or them. The rate is set by the council. 41 to 52, 62.
When I had talked to somebody in the office prior to this meeting, it seemed like that there was some discretion under the statute which gave you the authority to decide how the back portion of the property was going to be taxed. Is that true?
We've had this policy, I think, 100 years. We've been following the same procedure. So in order to treat everyone fairly in the past, we continue the policy so that everyone is treated the same over time as well. Because if we stopped assessing the backside of the lot, then you would be getting something that somebody else 10 years ago didn't get. So it's a fairness over time and fairness in this year. Everyone's paying the same rate. Everyone's being treated the same over time as well. You know, where if we didn't assess you this time, but we did last time, would that be fair to the people who paid the first time? I guess, so it's been a long-standing policy that we're hesitant to change because then that would be unfair to the people who paid last year or the year before.
And I'm familiar with the fairness concept, but what I'm looking at is a distinction based on the uniqueness of the property, because I think you have to acknowledge that this is a very unique neighborhood in terms of the mixed use. And if it was 100th Street that was actually where the work was being done, the businesses wouldn't be taxed, correct?
Right.
Okay, so if it's the businesses that are primarily using that road, it could be the fact that if they didn't have the property owners there, if it was just 894, they would be collecting, or they would be responsible for the full amount of the assessment for 101st Street, correct?
They wouldn't pay any differently.
So they would just pay the same. The city of West Dallas would pick up the rest. Is that how it would work?
That's right.
Okay. So in this case, there's some discretion being exercised on how the property, that you're going to charge the residential property owners something. That could be the difference, is it not?
No, there's not really any discretion. We have written policies. This is how we assess the backside of lots. It happens elsewhere.
Can you cite exactly what the authority is for the taxing the back owners of the lot?
Well, state statute says you can assess anywhere that they're abutting. So,
But I believe the state statute also says that there's some discretion in terms of how that's calculated. Is that true?
from city to city, it varies, but I'm saying that we've had a policy of doing it for 100 years. And we
But is that written policy, or are we
Yes, yes.
exercising?
Yeah, no, it's written. It's
Okay,
written
so
down.
can you direct me to the statute provision in the
Get
subpart?
you- Well, it's not statute, it's city policy. I can get you a copy of that
Okay, and where would that be found?
in our policies and procedures manual. It's not online, I'll have to make a copy for you.
All right, but you're not, you're representing at this point that it's written regarding this particular neighborhood, there's no discretion being exercised, this is how it's been done since antiquity.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
When can I expect to get that?
I'll talk to you afterwards, get your address or email or something, I can scan it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to address the council under, or I'm sorry, does anybody else have any questions or comments on public hearing number 1?
Hello. My name is Brian Jacoby. I live on 2637 South 101st Street. So I think I will have a common contention that many of the people on our block do, and that is that in the past year, we were the staging ground for the replacement of the Cleveland Avenue Bridge. And so all of the steel and heavy equipment and all of the concrete trucks and everything used that street to replace the bridge. And so my recollection is before that project, the street was fine. Aging. I mean, definitely aging, but I don't believe there were any potholes or, a lot of replacement work being done. And after that project, there was a noticeable difference. The street is, I mean, you can see from the photo, pretty mangled right now.
Actually, I had picked that street to do about 5 years ago because I thought it was getting pretty bad. So I guess I would disagree that all the damage was done. I actually postponed the street until after they did the bridge so that they wouldn't mung up the nice new asphalt that we're putting down. So I had my eye on that street about 5 years ago. I actually postponed it because we did do the part by Mitchell School. I actually postponed it so that they wouldn't get messed up. Actually, both of these streets. I waited until the state was done. So I think it was pretty bad about 5 years ago. And it is 50 years old. That's almost one of the oldest concrete streets in the city. We just had a hearing for 76th Street a few weeks ago. That was 52 years, and I think that was the oldest. So you're definitely one of the oldest concrete streets in the city, and if we don't resurface it with asphalt, what's going to happen if we wait 5-10 years is it will be not worth saving, and we'll actually have to reconstruct it, which doubles the cost to you and to the city. And so if we do this now, we can save the street for another 20 or 30 years at a lower cost, both to you and to us, because there's a higher assessment rate if we have to rebuild it. So we're actually trying to do the lowest cost option now to save you money and to save us money and to get some more life out of that street before it's totally gone.
I can appreciate that, but I would still contend that as a resident who drives that street every day, it is a far cry from where it was 12 months ago. I mean, I never noticed anything wrong in the street. So that's my point of view. I know a lot of people on our block share that point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have questions or comments on this item?
I'm Anthony Menzi. I live at 1639 South 100th Street. I agree with everything my neighbor had to say, that the road behind my house, 101st, I don't have access to. Also on 100th Street, I don't know how often we're plowed, if at all, by the city. I know that 101st is plowed all the time for the semis to come through, but the residents, for me to get to my home along 100th Street, I usually have to climb over a lot of snow, and usually there's a man on our block that plows it for us. So I don't know that the city usually has much interest in the street that I use, so I don't have much interest in a street I don't use.
I'm pretty sure the city's plowing 100th Street and 101st Street.
I know they're playing 101st.
Well, pretty sure they're plowing 100th Street too.
Yeah, you can check. I don't think they're doing it at the same time if they do. I think they usually wait a little while afterwards because we're kind of a dead-end street. We only have the loop where only the residences use it. Nobody else uses it. So I think we sometimes get forgotten that way. Also, if it's something where the city wants this to be done with the street, if we don't have tax money that can pay for it at this time, I would ask that it not be done at this time. If we have a voice in this vote, I think the general census of what I feel from other neighbors that aren't even here is that we're mostly all against it. Unless somebody has different to say, I'd like to know. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on public hearing number 1?
My name is Theodore Kazowski, and I live at 2629 South 101st Street. And I just want to agree with my neighbor there about the road, that I don't feel it was that bad until the construction on Cleveland Avenue Bridge. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on public hearing number 1?
Cheryl Rassman, 1651 South 100th Street. My parents bought this house in 1946. It's been in our family ever since. At the time they purchased this house, there was a horse farm in our backyard. It abutted our land. Somehow, the city of West Dallas decided to put a road through there called 101st Street. We have no access from 1651 South 100th Street to that road. Our driveway is approaching 100th Street. Our utilities are all off of 100th Street. Our sewer, our water is off of there. Yes, we do have a telephone pole in the back of the yard on the easement that was always there even when the horse farm was there. All of a sudden now, we're being asked to pay all this extra money because our house borders both the front on 100th Street and on the back on 101st Street. We really think, as the rest of the residents who have property that abuts both sides of the, on 101st Street and 100th Street, we really think it's very unfair to us. What's going to happen when you redo 100th Street? That means we're going to pay for both streets. Well, we don't have access to 101st Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on public hearing number 1? Seeing none, we will close public hearing number 1. I will ask our clerk to read public hearing number 2.
A hearing on the special use permit for a proposed multifamily residential development to be located at 66 Star West National Avenue.
Mr. Stiebel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of the public hearing tonight is to consider a special use for a property located in what we refer to as the Six Points neighborhood, just south of National Avenue and west of about 66th Street. In the first phase of the project, which was completed just north of the farmers market, it's got 4 buildings, and that taxable value of those 4 buildings is about $15 million. Phase 2 is going to be in this area, and that's the purpose of this public hearing. Because the area is zoned commercial, multifamily properties within a commercial district are permitted, but only as a special use, and that's the purpose of the public hearing this evening. The 2.6 acre site will have 2 buildings on it, about 115 units total, and the taxable value will be about $14 million. Just as a point of reference, the taxable value of the 4 buildings in the first phase is about $15 million. So just these 2 will equal about what was done over the last several years. The 2 buildings are going to be connected technically with underground parking, and because there's 2 buildings on one lot, we do have a planned unit development district overlay. 128 parking stalls are going to be underground, 138 for the surface, which is about 266 parking stalls total. The ordinance requires 188, so according to this current plan, we've got ample parking. The building is going to be craftsman style, which is very similar to the bungalows properties in the neighborhood, so it should blend in fairly well. It'll be split face block and brick and EFA style on the materials. Assuming a lot of things that are still out there that need to get done are approved, the building could actually begin construction sometime yet this summer and be completed this summer of 2015. The building's style will look very similar to what this developer built in Wauwatosa, and this is kind of a good example of what those buildings will look like. We still have a lot of other issues that the Community Development Authority and the Common Council will have to deal with, but this is one of those entitlement issues that need to be addressed in order to allow anything else to proceed. The Plan Commission has reviewed this proposal, has recommended approval, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stiebel. Are there any questions from the Common Council on public hearing number 2?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman May?
John, there was a special use permit for this project before, I believe, and then it lapsed. Has anything substantially changed?
Yes. What has changed since it lapsed is that the developer has received a preliminary commitment for financing, which was the biggest problem that we've had before. The Plan Commission has also reviewed the architectural elevations of the building and recommended approval. With this step here, that would be the last technical impediment for them to begin. Now, the biggest problem that we've had in getting this thing to move forward is the rents are still at about what I would call $1 a square foot. The construction costs for the first phase of those 4 buildings, those units average about $90,000 per acre. The current budget is calling for those units to be at about $125,000 per unit. But so you've got that, and that's been the biggest problem. Interest rates have been a big issue. We've worked with WIDA to be able to get long-term financing so that we've reduced the interest rate from 6%, which he was going to have to get from his prior lender, down to 4.25%. So it's making it much more affordable and much more doable. I think this has a reasonably good chance of actually getting done. Because as of the 1st of January, the current developer had defaulted on their agreement with the city. The city attorney's office is now pursuing all legal remedies at accelerated pace. We're not going to stop doing that. We're going to go up. We're working now on a dual track where we're going to negotiate with the developer, work with the developer, help the developer get in the ground this summer. But at the same time, we're going to be taking any other legal measures that we need to recover any guarantees that we could get for the developer and recover the land so that we can get another developer in there.
Are there any other questions from the Common Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Vitale?
John, is anything that by going through this redevelopment for that site is an outstanding issue that I believe is going to be solved before we go ahead with this project? I mean, there is an issue that we need to be clarified between the city attorney and ourselves?
Yes, because of the pending litigation, and we haven't actually launched the litigation, but we have given the developer another 30 days to get back to us so that we can get back to the Community Development Authority so they can make a recommendation to the Common Council on how to proceed. That has to be resolved before they put any dirt or before they move any caterpillars onto the site. So there's certainly a large impediment still out there yet that needs to be resolved.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Alderman. Are there any other questions or comments from the Common Council? Seeing none other questions or comments from the audience? Okay, seeing none, we will close our second public hearing and move on to item E on your agendas. Citizen participation is an opportunity for residents to address the council on matters of interest to them. We limit this portion of our agenda to approximately 30 minutes, and we ask that you condense your comments to approximately 5 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to address the council under citizen participation this evening? Approach the microphone, please, and sign in and give us your name and address for the record.
I'm signed in. My name is John Arndt. Address is 1653 South 61st Street. At this time, I'd like to ask my Alderman, Mike Szapleski, to take a picture of the street that I took. Take a look at a picture I took right before I called you this evening in regards to the plowing. And you tell me if this is a properly plowed street.
Mr. Arndt, this isn't a time to debate, as I think you know. This is just for us to listen to you because of open meetings or potential open meetings violations.
We're going to assume that Mike looked at that and said, yeah, that's a lousy plowing job.
You may assume.
Today is not the first time that's happened. I've been here 4 or 5 times on this. Many of you might know me. A lot of you people I've talked to DPW. I've been in your office. I've been in the older gentleman's office there. Nothing ever gets done about it. And I was just out in the hall talking with Peter Daniels, or talking with the group that's talking to Peter Daniels, and the people out there are talking about another issue, but it's all lumped into one. And my comment to them was, and some of the people said, yeah, I feel the same way too, that you guys have us here tonight, we get to blow off a little steam, and then tomorrow it's business as usual for you guys. You really don't care. And I know you don't care based on my property, okay? So until that changes, that's going to be my point of view, my opinion, okay? So if unless, is the person here, one last question, is the person here tonight that has the authority to do a proper street plowing job? Yes or no? Is that person here? Who is it?
We're really not allowed to answer
Yeah, after
your
that, we
questions.
cannot
We
really
can talk
answer
to you during
really.
recess.
All right.
Are there any other residents who wish to address the council under citizen participation this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will close citizen participation. We will move on to item F on our agendas. There is one slight change on our room numbers for the standing committee meetings. What was listed as room 113, we anticipated conflict of scheduling in that room, a conflict in room 128, but there is no conflict, so the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, License, and Health will be meeting in room 128, not room 113. Move on to item G, the mayor's report. Just a few things this evening. As I mentioned earlier, we had a very sad day in our city yesterday with the passing of Detective Stacy Napoli. There are several support efforts going on for not only the children left behind, collecting baby supplies, but also financial support for the father and the children. I'm not going to list them all, but you can call my office or get a hold of the non-emergency number at the police department. There are also posts on social media and on Facebook as well, and I know the news networks have also been picking them up, and I want to thank them for their help in our efforts to assist with this unbelievably unfortunate situation. Coming up on February 22nd, at the La Follette Park Pavilion, the Friends of La Follette Park, in conjunction with the county parks, will be hosting an Empty Bowls soup benefit for West Dallas area food pantries. It's $5 for a meal of soup, and they ask that you bring a non-perishable food item to go to local food pantries. Some of our local restaurants participating are Filippo's, Senior Soul, State Fair Inn, and the West Dallas Cheese and Sausage Shop. Again, that's on Saturday, February 22nd from 4 o'clock until 7 o'clock. Last Friday, February 7th, several of us men were lucky enough to serve lunch to the West Dallas Women's Club, which included Alderpersons Reinke and Probst at their Queen for a Day event. And I want to thank the Women's Club for all that they do and all the work and volunteering they do in our community. It's really a small gesture that we serve them lunch and then we end up eating ourselves. So, but they are so active in the community events, and they're so active in raising awareness on things like domestic violence and helping out at all the events in our city. I just want to take a moment to say thank you, and I know that we all do enjoy doing that. I also wanted to let everybody know that John McGivern's television show on Milwaukee Public Television, Around the Corner, did do a show on West Dallas, and that is going to be airing on March 20th on Channel 10. And there is also going to be a premiere party the night before at State Fair Park, where they'll have John Gerda and John McGivern there, and they'll have a little presentation, then it'll be the first showing of that episode. And lastly, I want to mention that on Saturday, March 1st, we have the grand opening in our city of Inspiration Studios, which is going to be at 1500 South 73rd Street. It will be home to the Village Playhouse and some art galleries. And the vision of the owner is to provide a worthwhile art and theater experience to the residents of West Dallas and the greater Milwaukee metropolitan area. There will be a variety of exhibits and performances at same high standards as existing venues, but with a smaller, more intimate setting. So I think a lot of us are very glad that we are going to have kind of an art center playhouse coming to the city, and they're having a grand opening again on Saturday, March 1st. Lastly, I just want to mention on behalf of our fire chief that with all the snow we got yesterday, there are concerns about fire hydrants being covered. So if you are in a neighborhood or in the vicinity of a fire hydrant, I remind you once again that if you could take a few minutes to work with your neighbors and clear those, hope you never need to use them, but if you do, you want them to be very accessible. That concludes the mayor's report this evening. Do we have any reports from the alderpersons?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Weigel.
I'd like to mention one event I attended last weekend. The West Dallas Rotary Club hosted their inaugural Cocktails for a Cause fundraiser at the Knights of Columbus on 92nd Street. It supports the Rotary Club in their international clean water efforts. I'd like to congratulate Double B's on Greenfield Avenue. They won the Experts Award for the best cocktail. It seemed like it was a well-attended event, and I'm looking forward to attending again next year. And I'll be hitting you all up for tickets when the time comes. Also, you can't see because the blinds are closed over here, but Anchor Bank on 74th and Greenfield began demolition of their old building. Some of you may remember it as West Dallas Savings and Loan, or various, I think it was Liberty Bank for a while. But so it's going to be a great, not an addition, but the businesses in the downtown are very glad to see that the bank is bulldozing their old location, and they will be building a brand new location, gorgeous new building, be sitting on that site, and they plan to open late June, early July. So if you are driving down Greenfield Avenue, you might see a bulldozer, wrecking ball, that kind of stuff going on there. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Weigel. Are there any other reports from the alderpersons?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Probst?
I opened my mouth, I sounded like Alderman May for a minute. He actually beat me to the punch.
Okay, Alderman May.
Wow.
I was just hoping one of you would yield to the other, but you both stared at me, so.
Thanks for yielding.
Just call me Mr. Smith.
Yeah, get out the Roberts rules. A quick note that the Department of Transportation, as part of their freeway planning for the Zoo interchange, they plan on closing a ramp in the future. I'm not sure of the exact dates yet, but as part of that, what they'd like to do is remove parking off a portion of Greenfield Avenue between 84th and 96th Street. And there's a neighborhood meeting tomorrow occurring here from 4 to 6 p.m., tomorrow being Wednesday the 19th. From 4 to 6 p.m., the department will be available here to answer any questions, and I plan to be here as well to listen to input. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Probst.
Just a few things. To touch back on the mayor's point about the fire hydrants, just would like to remind everyone, I made a special point of looking to find out where my fire hydrant is, and it's not in front of my property. Yet, in a fire, that's the one I'm going to need. So I guess it's not just the responsibility of the person whose property lies behind it. I said it right this time, instead of in front of it. The property that lies behind it, so everyone on the block should really be pitching in. So my husband and I went down and we shoveled ours out last night. And I suppose I probably made somebody pretty happy, and it took me about 10 minutes. So consider that if you've got one on your block close to your home. At the same time that our next council meeting occurs, we'll be in the midst of Read Across America Week. So for those of you that enjoy little kids, you might want to reach out to the elementary schools, both public and private, in our fair city, and see if you are needed to read to small children during that week. We will be celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday. And lastly, I'd like to send a great big thank you to Alderman Reinke for inviting me to the Women's Club Luncheon, in which these fine gentlemen got to wait on us. For a number of reasons, that was fun. But I very much appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to joining the ranks of the Women's Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports from the alderpersons this evening?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Lysick.
I understand there's a modification to tonight's agenda.
Yes, that's correct. Agenda item number 30 is a referral change from Safety and Development to Administration and Finance.
I move for the approval of the agenda as amended.
Second.
There is a motion with a second by Alderman May. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Lysick.
I move for approval of the minutes of the Common Council regular meeting of February 4th, 2014.
Second.
There's a motion with a second by Alderman Probst. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item J on your agendas, I'd ask for a motion to refer items 3, 4, and 5 to the city attorney.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Alderman Probst, second by Alderman Barzak. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Standing committee reports. Committee of the Whole, who wants to report out that, Mr. President?
Mayor Devine.
All right.
I refer you to items 6 and 8 on your agenda. 2 communications to be placed on file, acted upon favorably by all 9 members of the committee. I move for adoption of the committee report on those items.
Second.
There is a motion and a second by Alderman May. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderperson Lysick.
Aye.
May.
Aye.
Probst.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Barzak.
Aye.
Chapletsky.
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed.
Motion carries.
I then refer you to item 7 on your agenda. It's a report on possible changes to organizational structure and city administrative office, clerk treasurer position and responsibilities. The recommendation of the committee is to approve as amended, acted upon favorably by 8 members of the committee, 1 member voting no. I
Second.
move for adoption.
There's a motion with a second by Alderman Vitale. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Chapletsky?
you know, with Paul Zeither retiring, I think this was an opportunity for us to save some taxpayer dollars. I don't see by what we have done really to do that, and I just think we're letting the taxpayers down. That's it.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderperson Lysick.
Aye.
May.
Aye.
Probst.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Barzak.
Aye.
Chapletsky.
No.
8 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries.
That's all, Mayor Devine.
Thank you. That concludes our morning business.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we stand in recess until conclusion of the committee meetings.
Second.
There is a motion and a second by Alderman Ranky. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are in recess.